What happens when one royal family turns on itself? This is the War of the Roses, the brutal struggle that tore England apart. The War of the Roses was not a single war, but a series of conflicts between two rival houses, the House of Lancaster and the House of York, both fighting for control of the English throne. In a region of France called Anjou, there was a man named Geoffrey of Anjou. He wore a plant called Plantagenista, which gave rise to the name Plantagenet. Geoffrey's son, Henry II of England, married Eleanor of Aquitaine and took the English throne, establishing the powerful house of Plantagenet. When Charles IV of France died without a surviving son, his cousin Philip VI of France took the throne. But there was a problem. Edward III of England was the nephew of Charles through his mother Isabella of France and believed that gave him the stronger claim to the throne. This sparked the Hundred Years' War. Edward's son, Edward the Black Prince, became a legendary commander but died of disease before becoming king. Edward III had other sons, including John of Gaunt and Edmund of Langley. From them came two rival branches, Lancaster or the Red Rose and York or the White Rose. When Edward III died, the throne passed to his grandson via the Black Prince, Richard II of England, who was only a child. Then came a turning point. Henry IV of England, the son of John of Gaunt, seized power while Richard was away. Richard later died in captivity, beginning the rule of the House of Lancaster. Henry IV's line continued through Henry V of England and then to Henry VI of England. But Henry VI was weak and unstable. A powerful noble, Richard Duke of York, began challenging his authority. Henry's queen, Margaret of Anjou, did not trust Richard Duke of York and worked to push him out of power. She convinced Henry IV to favour her ally, Edmund Beaufort, the Duke of Somerset, giving him control of the court and government, while York was sent away from power to Ireland. But everything changed when Henry VI suffered a mental breakdown. York was appointed Lord Protectorate and took control, immediately moving against Somerset, imprisoning him and reversing Margaret's influence. When Henry recovered, Somerset was restored, York was removed again, and the rivalry turned from politics into open conflict. On May 22, 1455, the conflict exploded at the First Battle of St. Albans. York and his ally, the Earl of Warwick, defeated the Lancastrians, killed Somerset, and captured Henry VI. But this was just the beginning. After years of tension, Richard Duke of York returned in 1460 and took control of London. With Henry VI of England in his hands, a deal was forced, the Act of Accord. Henry would remain king, but after his death, the throne would pass to York and his heirs. But there was a problem. This deal disinherited Henry's own son, Edward of Westminster. For Margaret of Anjou, this was unacceptable. She refused the agreement and fled north, while she struck a deal with the King of Scotland, gaining support in exchange for promises of land. With this army, she marched south. At the Battle of Wakefield, York was defeated and killed, along with his son Edmund. Margaret continued her advance, and soon after Lancastrian forces defeated the Yorkists. Again at the Second Battle of St. Albans, Margaret left London without a king and moved north to consolidate her forces. Meanwhile, York's eldest son, Edward IV of England, joined Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, and their remaining troops then marched into London. There, the Bishop of London presented Edward to the people and asked for their judgment, and the crowd shouted back, "King Edward," proclaiming him de facto king. Edward and Warwick then marched north, chasing Margaret's army. They met near York at the Battle of Towton on March 29, 1461. They fought in a blizzard. It became one of the bloodiest battles in English history, and the Yorks won. It seemed the War of the Roses was finally over in a Yorkist victory. Or was it? Warwick, once Edward's greatest ally, began to turn against him. Warwick had been negotiating a political marriage between Edward and a Italian princess to secure an alliance. She was born of Savoy. But Edward secretly married Elizabeth Woodville, a relatively low-ranking widow from a lesser noble family. This humiliated Warwick, ruined his diplomatic plans, and allowed the Woodville family to rise quickly at court, pushing Warwick out of influence. Feeling betrayed and sidelined, Warwick began plotting against the very king he had helped place on the throne. Switching sides, but he didn't come alone. He allied with Margaret and he brought George, Duke of Clarence, the brother of Edward, who had turned against Edward out of ambition and resentment. Together they invaded England, forced Edward to flee, and restored Henry VI of England to the throne. England was thrown back into chaos. Edward IV of England fled, but in 1471 he returned with support. Aided by his loyal brother Richard III, Warwick had tried to tie England to France, but that created a new enemy. Charles the Bold, ruler of Burgundy, a powerful rival of France, now saw Warwick's England as a threat. So instead, he backed Edward, giving him money, ships, and support to return and reclaim his throne. At the Battle of Barnet, Richard Neville, Earl of Warwick, was defeated and killed. Soon after the Battle of Tewkesbury, Edward crushed the Lancasterian forces. Margaret of Anjou was captured, her son killed, and Henry VI of England soon died in the Tower of London. Margaret remained a prisoner in England until she was later ransomed by the King of France and allowed to return home, ending her direct role in the war. For a moment, the war finally seemed over. Or was it? When Edward IV of England died in 1483, his young sons were next in line. But their uncle, Richard III of England, once a loyal ally who had fought beside Edward and helped restore him to the throne, now stepped in, claiming that Edward's secret marriage made his children illegitimate. Richard seized power for himself and was crowned king. The princes, Edward V of England and his younger brother Richard, were locked in the Tower of London, and then they disappeared. Then came a new challenger, Henry VII of England, a Lancasterian with a distant claim. He invaded England in 1485. At the Battle of Bosworth Field, he defeated Richard III, who was killed in battle. Henry took the throne. To secure his rule and prevent further rebellion, Henry VII of England married the daughter of Edward IV of England, uniting the rival houses of Lancaster and York. The Red Rose and the White Rose became one, thus ending the War of the Roses. The House of Tudor had begun.